My fiancée publicly humiliated me at our engagement party, so I called off everything and let her face the consequences, lone and broken. I'm a 31-year-old guy. And for a while, I truly believed I'd met the woman I was going to spend my life with. I've never been flashy or rich, just a guy who worked his way up from nothing. My parents ran a small grocery store, and I learned early that every dollar meant sweat. I took pride in that. By the time I hit 30, I had a steady job, a small but comfortable apartment, a quiet sense of peace with the life I'd built. Then Sophie walked in. We met at a charity gala my company sponsored, one of those events filled with suits and polished smiles. She was radiant, confident, the kind of woman who turned heads without even trying. When she started talking to me, I honestly thought it was a mistake, but she laughed easily, asked about my work, and told me she admired people who stay grounded. That line stuck with me. It felt like she saw me for who I was, not what I had. Over the next few months, we were inseparable. She'd tease me about my old car, then say she loved that I didn't care about image. I'd cook her dinner in my small kitchen while she talked about her dreams of starting her own design studio. Her world was glossy, full of high expectations and finer things. But she made me feel like I belonged in it. We talked about marriage often, about building a life that was equal, respectful, real. I thought we meant the same thing. So, 2 years after that first night, I proposed to her at sunset on the pier where we had our first date. She said yes, tears in her eyes. And I swear I'd never felt more certain that love could overcome anything. But I was wrong. The first few weeks after the proposal felt like a dream. Sophie showed off her ring proudly, calling me the man who makes her feel safe. My family adored her, and my mom kept saying how lucky I was to find someone so refined yet kind. I believed it too until the wedding planning began. That's when things started to change in ways I didn't expect. It began subtly. Sophie would scroll through social media, showing me posts of her friends' engagements. "Look at Jenna's ring," she'd say with a half smile. "Do you think mine looks smaller in photos?" I'd laugh it off, but her tone carried something sharp underneath. Then came comments about venues, decorations, and the guest list. "We can't have it at your family's community hall," she said one night. "People will talk." I remember asking, "What people?" She just sighed, as if I didn't understand how her world worked. Her parents joined in too polite, but patronizing. Her father once patted me on the shoulder and said, "You've done well for yourself, son." Not many from your background climbed this high. It was meant as a compliment, but I felt the sting behind it. When I mentioned a smaller, intimate ceremony, Sophie frowned. "This is my one big day," she said. "It has to be perfect." I told her we didn't need perfection, just each other. She kissed me, smiled, and whispered, "You'll see. It's going to be magical." But I couldn't shake the growing unease. She started spending more time with her mother and her wealthy friends, often referring to how things are done in her circle. I told myself it was stress, that all brides get a little intense before the wedding still. Every time she looked at me lately, it felt less like love and more like calculation, and I couldn't tell if I was imagining it, or if something deeper was starting to crack. By the 3rd month of engagement, I barely recognized the woman I'd proposed to. Sophie had transformed into someone obsessed with every superficial detail, and every detail seemed to have a price tag that made my stomach churn. The engagement party became her new project. "It's not just for us," she said one night, flipping through a glossy magazine. "It's for our families to celebrate together. It has to look right." When I reminded her we'd agreed to keep things modest, she waved me off. "You only get one engagement, babe. Don't you want to make it memorable?" Her tone was sugar-sweet, but her eyes were sharp. I could feel her testing me, pushing to see how far I'd go to keep her happy. The next week, she handed me a breakdown of costs. My half was double what we'd originally planned. I stared at the numbers and asked quietly, "Do we really need a champagne fountain?" She sighed, annoyed. "You don't understand appearances, do you?" Her parents backed her up. Over dinner, her mother smiled tightly and said, "You'll learn soon enough that presentation matters." "Dear," her father added, "if you're marrying into this family, you can't be afraid of a little investment." That word investment stuck with me. It made the entire thing sound like a business deal. not a celebration of love. I felt my pride wrestle with my affection. I didn't want to disappoint Sophie. Didn't want to look like the insecure fiancé who couldn't provide. So, I agreed. I told her I'd handle the extra expenses, though it meant dipping into the savings I'd built over years of sacrifice. She lit up, kissed my cheek, and said, "That's my man." But as she turned away, I caught something in her smile, something hollow, rehearsed. And in that moment I realized she wasn't excited about us. She was excited about the show. The night of the engagement party felt like stepping into someone else's life. The venue Sophie chose was extravagant chandeliers, marble floors, waiters in crisp uniforms. The kind of place where a single glass of wine probably cost more than my weekly grocery bill. Guests in designer suits filled the hall, most of them strangers from Sophie's side. Her laughter echoed across the room as she floated between groups, like a queen holding court. Meanwhile, my parents stood near the back, awkwardly clutching glasses of water. My mom wore her best dress, the one she saved for weddings. But I could tell she felt out of place. My dad gave me a quiet nod that said, "You did good, son." I tried to believe it. I told myself the discomfort was temporary, that soon we'd all relax and celebrate together. Sophie barely noticed me. Every time I tried to take her hand or share a quiet moment, she was pulled away by another important guest. I watched her pose for photos, her hand delicately resting on my shoulder like I was a prop. My friends from work tried to joke about it, but even they could see I was shrinking into the background. When the band began to play, the room dimmed slightly, and Sophie took the stage. The spotlight hit her perfectly, like the world existed just for her. She raised a glass, her diamond ring catching the light, and said she wanted to make a special toast. I smiled, expecting something heartfelt, maybe a story about how we met or how she loved my simplicity. The crowd hushed, every eye on her. She looked straight at me, that perfect poised smile on her face. Then she opened her mouth, and with her very first words, I felt the ground beneath me start to shift. Sophie's voice rang through the speakers, smooth and confident. First of all, she began, smiling at the crowd. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate our engagement. It means the world to us." I relaxed a little until she added, "And thank you for accepting that I'm marrying a man who still thinks sparkling water is just spicy tap water." Laughter rippled through the room. At first I thought it was a harmless joke, but she kept going. "He's so adorably clueless," she said, glancing at me. "He still drives that little old Honda, bless his heart, and once asked the waiter what a charcuterie board was." The laughter grew louder, sharper. I felt heat crawl up my neck. She didn't stop. Every line cut deeper. "But hey," she said, pretending to sound affectionate, "he may not have class, but he's loyal. And in this economy, that's something." The room erupted. Her friends doubled over laughing. Even her father chuckled behind his glass. My parents stood frozen, my mother gripping her clutch like she wanted to disappear. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. My throat went dry. I tried to smile, tried to play along, but the humiliation burned. Every look from the crowd reminded me that I was the joke, the poor guy she'd elevated. When she finally ended her speech with, "Let's raise a glass to love, even when it comes from humble beginnings," the laughter was deafening. Something inside me broke. I stood up slowly, ignoring the whispers and camera flashes. Sophie's smile faltered as she saw my face. "Babe, it's just a joke," she called after me, still holding her glass. I didn't answer. I walked past her, past the crowd, past my stunned parents, and out the door. Outside, the night air hit like ice. The music from inside still echoed faintly, cruel reminder that the party went on without me. And that's when I knew the woman I loved had turned me into her punchline. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in my car outside my apartment, headlights off, staring at nothing. My phone buzzed, non-stop calls from Sophie, her parents, even mutual friends, trying to smooth things over. I couldn't bring myself to answer. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard her laughter again. The way she said humble beginnings, like it was something dirty around midnight. Text came through. "You're overreacting. It was just a joke. Everyone laughed because they love us." I almost laughed at that. Us. There was no us in that moment, just her. Basking in the glow of a spotlight built on my humiliation. By morning, my parents showed up at my door. My mother's eyes were red, and my father looked angrier than I'd ever seen him. "You don't owe her anything," he said, voice steady but tight. "You showed those people respect," and she spat on it. I nodded, but I still couldn't find words. Then Sophie called again. This time I picked up. Her voice was calm, almost rehearsed. "You embarrassed me by storming out," she said. "Everyone was asking where you went. Made me look bad." "I made you look bad?" I asked quietly. She hesitated, then softened her tone. "Look, I got carried away. It wasn't that deep. Can we just move past it?" That was the moment something in me snapped. The woman I'd defended, trusted, and loved more than anyone couldn't even admit she went too far. I told her I needed space, that I wasn't sure I could forgive this. She sighed. "Fine. But don't do anything stupid, okay? We still have a wedding to plan." I hung up without answering. That's when it hit me. She didn't see what she did as betrayal. She saw it as normal. And I realized maybe it had been building all along, and I'd just refused to see it. For the next few days, I went completely silent. No calls, no texts, no explanations. I needed time to breathe, to think without the noise of her excuses. Sophie kept posting photos from the engagement night, tagging me in every one, pretending everything was perfect. The captions made me sick, so grateful for my amazing fiancée. A night to remember forever. Meanwhile, I was replaying every conversation we'd ever had, realizing how many small red flags I'd brushed off. The subtle digs about my car. The way she'd cringe when I tipped generously at diners. How she once told me, "You're too nice. It makes you look naive." I used to take those comments as teasing. Now they felt like clues I'd ignored. While she paraded our fake happiness online, I got to work behind the scenes. I started contacting vendors and canceling everything tied to the wedding deposits, reservations, photographers. Most were under my name, paid from my account. Each cancellation felt like taking back a piece of myself. When her mother called to check in, the conversation was colder than marble. "We hope this little break helps you realize how much Sophie has done for you," she said. I bit my tongue so hard it almost bled. At night, I'd scroll through our old photos, my heart tightening at how genuine my smile looked compared to hers. The contrast was haunting. I'd been in love, and she'd been performing. Finally, too. After nearly a week of silence, I decided it was time to face her. Not to argue, but to end things for good. I texted her, "We need to talk. Tomorrow. Just us." Her reply came within seconds. "Finally, I'll pick the place." I could almost hear the smirk in her message. She had no idea. This conversation wouldn't end the way she expected. We met at her favorite cafe, the kind with marble tables, quiet jazz, and prices that made you question your life choices. She arrived 10 minutes late, sunglasses on indoors, dressed like she was attending a photo shoot. When she spotted me, she smiled like nothing had happened. "You look tired," she said, sitting down. "Rough week?" I didn't return the smile. "You could say that." She sighed dramatically. "Listen, I know you're upset, but you really overreacted." Everyone thought my speech was funny. "It wasn't funny to me," I said quietly. Her eyes flickered with irritation. "You can't take everything so seriously." "I was just trying to make the crowd laugh." "You're not mad about that, are you?" "I'm mad that the woman I love mocked me in front of everyone I know," I said, my voice shaking. "You turned my family into a punchline." She leaned back, crossing her arms. "Oh, come on. Your parents didn't even understand half of it. You're acting like I ruined your life." I pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table. Inside were printed receipts, invoices, and bank statements, proof of every deposit. Every payment, every expense, I covered for the engagement and the upcoming wedding. Her smirk faded as she flipped through them. "What is this supposed to mean?" she asked. "It means it's over," I said. "The engagement, the wedding, all of it. I've canceled everything. You don't owe me anything. I just wanted you to see how much I invested in something you treated like a performance." She blinked, caught off guard. "You can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life." Her expression hardened. Do you realize how this will look? People will think you called it off because you couldn't handle my world. I stood, leaving the envelope in front of her. They can think whatever they want. I started walking toward the door. Behind me, I heard her voice sharp, trembling. Can't just walk away like this. I didn't turn around. Watch me, I said. For a few days after that cafe scene, I thought the worst was behind me. I felt strangely calm, the kind of calm that comes after a storm, when you're too drained to feel anything else. But Sophie wasn't done. Not even close. 2 days later, I started getting messages from mutual friends, screenshots of Sophie's, posts, cryptic captions like "some men can't handle real women" and "money doesn't buy class." Her parents joined the smear campaign, subtly implying I'd panicked because I couldn't afford the wedding. I ignored it. I figured the truth didn't need defending. Then everything changed. My best friend Ethan, who had filmed part of the engagement toast, called me one night. "You need to see this," he said. He'd uploaded a short clip from that night, just 30 seconds long, showing Sophie's humble beginnings joke and the audience laughing. He hadn't added commentary, just the raw footage. Within hours, the video started spreading. People were horrified. Comments poured in. "This is cruel. She humiliated him in public. Run, man, run." Sophie's social media, once filled with filtered perfection, turned into a battleground. Her followers started turning on her. By the next day, local gossip pages had picked it up. Headlines like "Bride-to-be mocks Fiancée engagement party" made the rounds. Sophie's perfect image was crumbling in real time. Her family's business, a local interior design firm, took a hit when clients began canceling appointments. That evening, my phone rang. Sophie. Her voice was different now. Shaky. Small. "You did this to me," she whispered. "You're trying to destroy me." I didn't respond right away. I just listened to her breathing, her composure cracking. Then I said, calm and steady, "No, Sophie. You destroyed yourself. The world just finally saw it." She broke into sobs before hanging up. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel humiliated. I felt vindicated. But part of me knew.
Ow.
This wasn't the end. Not yet. It was late one evening when I heard the knocking. Not a polite tap, a desperate, rapid pounding that echoed through my apartment. I opened the door, and there she was, Sophie. Her hair was messy, makeup streaked, eyes red and swollen. For a second, I barely recognized her. She stepped inside without asking. "You have to make it stop," she said, voice trembling. "The video, the comments, they're everywhere. I can't even go to work. People are laughing at me." I stood still, feeling a strange mix of pity and resentment. "Sophie, I didn't post it. Ethan did. And even if I had, you made those jokes. No one forced you." She shook her head violently. "You don't understand. My parents are furious. Our clients are leaving. My reputation is ruined." She looked at me, pleading. "Please, just tell people we're working things out. They'll back off." I stared at her. The same woman who once laughed while I stood humiliated in front of hundreds. Now, she was crying in my living room, clutching her designer purse like it could still protect her. "I can't do that," I said quietly. Her face hardened. "You're enjoying this, aren't you? Watching me fall apart?" I said, my voice breaking a little. "I just finally stopped letting you use me." She stepped closer, tears streaming. "I loved you," she whispered. "You think I wanted it to go this way?" "You loved the version of me that made you look good," I said. "The real me? You mocked him in front of the world." Silence filled the room. Then she whispered the last thing I ever expected. "You ruined my life." I took a long breath before replying, "No, Sophie, you ruined ours." She turned and left without another word. When the door closed, I sank onto the couch, staring at the empty space she'd left behind. That was rock bottom, not for her, but for me. Because for the first time, I finally accepted that the woman I loved never really existed at all. After Sophie walked out that night, silence became my companion. For the first time in years, there were no texts to answer, no apologies to craft, no performances to maintain. Just quiet, heavy, cleansing quiet. I deleted every photo of us from my phone, boxed up her things, and left them with the doorman at her building. It felt like closing the final chapter of a book I'd been too afraid to end. Meanwhile, the video continued to spread. It hit over 500,000 views in a week, shared across forums and reaction channels. People dissected every second of her speech. The smirk, the laughter, my stunned face. The internet had turned her cruelty into a case study in public humiliation. I didn't comment, didn't explain. I just watched it unfold from the sidelines. Her perfect online image disintegrated overnight. Brands she'd collaborated with dropped her. Old friends unfollowed. Even her own cousin posted, "Guess money can't buy kindness." Each post was a reminder that sometimes justice doesn't come from revenge, it comes from truth. I poured my energy into rebuilding. I threw myself into work, started running again, even took a solo trip to clear my head. My coworkers, once hesitant to bring up the engagement, started treating me differently with respect. Some of them admitted they'd seen the video too. One said quietly, "You handled it with more dignity than most would." A few weeks later, I got a message from someone unexpected, one of Sophie's closest friends. She thanked me for standing up for myself and told me something that twisted my gut. Sophie had been planning to merge finances after marriage and push me to buying a luxury condo under her name. That's when it hit me. She hadn't just humiliated me for fun. It was all about control, and by walking away, I'd taken the one thing she valued most, power. That realization didn't make me angry. It made me free. Months passed before I realized how far I'd come. The pain had faded into something quieter, like a scar that still tugs when you stretch but no longer bleeds. Life moved on, and so did I. I'd moved to a new apartment. Focused on work, even reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with while I was buried in that relationship. My world, once small and shaped by Sophie's approval, finally belonged to me again. One afternoon, I walked past the same restaurant where our engagement party had been held. The sign out front was different now, new owners, new name, but I still felt the echo of that night. I stood there for a moment, remembering the laughter, the sting of shame, and the look on her face when she realized I wasn't coming back. Only this time I didn't feel anger, just closure. A few days later, I got one last message from her. It was short. "I'm sorry. I really did love you, in my own way." I read it once, then again, searching for sincerity. Maybe there was some, but it didn't matter anymore. I deleted it without replying. Some words don't deserve an audience. In the weeks that followed, I started writing again something I'd given up years ago. Putting my thoughts on paper helped me make sense of everything. The pain, the pride, the lessons. I realized that what happened wasn't just humiliation, it was transformation. Sophie had taken my self-worth and crushed it, but in doing so, she forced me to rebuild it stronger. Sometimes revenge isn't loud. It isn't about ruining someone or watching them suffer. Sometimes it's just living better, quieter, freer while they're still trapped in the image they created. Standing outside that restaurant, I whispered to myself, "Thank you, Sophie." Not because I forgave her, but because she taught me the most valuable lesson I'll ever learn. You can't destroy a man who finally knows his own worth.